I started listening to the last season of Startup. So if you haven't seen Startup podcast, it's pretty nice, very nice. From Gimble, Alex Blumberg. I can't believe it's been 5 years since Gimlet started. I remember hearing that first season like it was yesterday. It was when I was kind of building my first business, and I was just like getting so much inspiration from it. And he has such a skill capturing stories that are unique. You never heard somebody capture a podcast of actually starting a startup, and like that moment where he gives his pitch to the VC guy, Chris, I can't remember what his name was. And it's like so awkward. And like the way he captures the full on awkward moments and takes you behind the scenes, but there's still a level of quality to the production is just unreal. I definitely liked the first season of Startup the best, and then subsequent seasons they out of necessity had to pivot to different topics and stuff like that, and then had different hosts. And it's still a quality podcast, but like when he does it himself, it's next level. And so this last season they talk about their acquisition by Spotify. And it's funny because I remember hearing that they were acquired by Spotify and going like, oh, that's cool. Like, I feel like I should hear him talking about it or saying something more in depth, you know? And I was like, it's weird. It just sort of silently happened. And now that I'm seeing this series come out, I'm like, okay, you know, he had the plan all along. And so I heard the first episode, Our Company Has Problems is the title of it. I mean, they really get right into a lot of the issues they had as a company that a lot of times you don't talk about when there's an acquisition. You talk about the positive aspects and things like that. But anyways, it was just really good. I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of it. I mean, he talks about problems with his co-founder, problems with the business model. And the other thing I have to say about this is, on the one hand, I was thinking to myself, before I started listening to this podcast and getting the kind of in-depth story on it, I was thinking to myself, oh wow, like they got acquired by Spotify, like success story, right? And then now that I'm listening to it, it's like, oh, their business was going downhill. They were burning like $1 million a month or something like. They were burning money fast, and so it was almost like they needed to be rescued. And then I was like, oh, it gave me a different picture of them as a company, which is what's so powerful again about how transparent he is about telling these stories, is that he says things that other people just wouldn't say. And I think about this a lot, like the difference between sort of the VC backed model where you're going for rocket ship explosive growth, and then the more sustained, more slow but very healthy growth model, which I'm more of a fan of. Because they launched some insane number of shows and they hired fast. It's like 100 people, and they were going for really, really fast growth. In other episodes of the podcast, I remember him talking about the tension of him sort of letting go of creative control a little bit, putting more of the CEO hat on. And I think to myself of an alternate universe where instead of going for the explosive growth, like what if they just went from more sustained but super healthy growth, where like they added like one podcast a year instead of like, I don't know, they must have been adding 10, 15 a year or something crazy. And where like each podcast, because like the podcasts are all quality, but they're not all that level that the first one was, and that some of them are Reply All. Like some of them are just insane quality. And it makes me think like, what if he had gone at like a slower pace and just really focused on quality and still had a super healthy business, like super healthy, and been able to really focus on the art of it and the craft. Now that he's got enough money to do whatever he wants, it'll be super interesting to see what he does next. And maybe he'll just do a podcast, like, and just do like a super cool podcast or whatever.